me shipmates. You've managed to get at least this far, haven't you? I hope so. I always manage to take the weekend off because weekends are a little bit crazy for me. I don't get a chance to really paint. Basically, where we left off is finishing up the multiple layers of gray on our stony terrain. Now, this looks great just as it is. You could certainly quit here if you'd like, but I'm going to take it a step further, and hopefully you will too. And we'll get that piece to look like this. Sweetness. I know I said I wanted to keep the stone a bit grayer and cooler, but I threw on some washes just to test it out. Really liked it. So we're going to warm up the rocks just a little bit and add some moss. And I'll show you how that's done. What you will need is Citadel Devlan Mud Wash and Thraka Green Wash. Oh, and this little area, these little areas of green, that's Citadel Foundation Gretchen Green. It's basically just a greenish yellow, kind of like an olive tone. And we're going for a lot of algae look. And I'm actually thinking of even going a step further on this and re-highlighting the edges of the rocks, but we'll get there. Alright, so this is a fairly easy step as well as the dry brushing was. Just going to take your Devlan Mud Wash. Get some on your brush, doesn't really matter how much, a little or a lot, as much as you think you'd like to have, and just start working it, mostly towards the base. Now we don't want this to look like brush strokes, we don't want a nice edge to any of it, so grab a little bit of water, wet your brush, and work it in so you have a nice smooth transition. Grab some paint, wet your brush, and do like a light feathering. And don't worry if your brush is a little drippy. It's all good. Make sure you get up into the crevices between the rocks. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, because again it dries pretty fast. Got a little bit ahead of myself here. Of course, favor the darker paint into the recesses. I'm going to do a better job up here. I always have pug hairs roaming on my brushes. Bear with me. I haven't managed to get my new tripod yet, so I'm still having a little bit of an issue filming what I'm painting because I'm paying more attention to laying down my paint than I am what's on my camera screen half of the time. And again, you're using a crappy brush. for this. Just going for a very organic, dirty kind of look. And by all means, follow all of these cracks in the rock faces. And in some of the deeper recesses, grab a whole ton of paint. Just dunk it in there and spread it around. Now here where it's dried, or drying, you can see where we're going with this. So here in the recesses here, grab a nice helping of the wash and just dunk it in. Focus on pulling the paint upwards when you can. Adds a lot of realism to it. And don't forget the backs of the rocks inside these crevices, because you will be seeing them from all angles, of course. So make sure you give everything some love. You can of course build this up in several layers depending on how dark you want it. And wait for the first layer to completely dry first. Pretty much anything you do is going to look good. I mean, they are just rocks, so you don't have to worry too much about being precise. This would go a lot easier if I didn't have woodpeckers pecking on my house. While I'm waiting for the other piece to dry, just grab this piece. Make sure you get plenty of mud wash into these eye sockets. And also into these crevices. You can water down the wash a little bit in order to get them in there into these crevices if you have to. And use water to clean up the edges. You'll get the hang of it when you're working with it. Like making the teeth a little bit more prominent. You just grab some paint, throw it into the crevices, and use water for some cleanup. So the brush strokes aren't that obvious. You can always go back in and touch up the white afterwards once it's dry. Alright, so this wash is pretty dry now to the touch. And I think I made the eye sockets dark enough. You want to make sure the eye sockets are pretty dark so that the glow effect stands out. But you don't want it to be like a nice... You wouldn't want to have like a solid line determining, I don't know, what's the word, depth of the eye socket. You don't want to just paint, say, up to here, completely solid black. You want a nice gradation into the darkness. It's a little bit too early for me, I guess. Can't find the words, people. Bear with me, as always. Bear with me. Alright. So, while that was drying, I went ahead and did this one. Whoa. Bumped my camera. And when you do this one, try to get along the sides of the skull, like the cheekbones. Help the skull stand out that much more on the table. It's still a little bit damp here. For the center of the volcano area, I'm thinking I might use a black wash on the inside here. I want to make this kind of like the eye sockets here. We want a nice dark center, and I am going to paint this entire area solid black, but along in here you're going to want like a soot all around the inside of these rocks. It is the inside of a volcano after all, so plus the darker it is, the more the glow effect will show off, because we're actually going to be painting pretty far up along these rocks for the glow. We'll also be here where the lava is spilling out. There's going to be glow effects too, so I'm going to go ahead and darken these areas just a tad more. I want that glow effect to really show off. And along in this rock too. We're going to get a lot of reflected light over here. Darken this one a little bit more. Seriously, I can't concentrate. Alright, so I've got some Bedaub Black Wash. I'm going to see how this works. Apply it pretty much the same. Here, you can see it better now. It's kind of hard to tell. It's working a little bit. I'm not sure if it's working as good as if I would stipple in some solid black. Let me keep up with this and then I'll show you the result when I'm done here. It's kind of hard to film and do this at the same time. Alright, a couple layers of Bedaub Black Wash. And I'm pretty much liking the way the black wash is handling these rocks. I prefer using a wash because it's a little bit more organic than just stippling on black paint. Gives it a little bit more realistic feel. It just creates a nice gradient blend. Washes are practically a must-have for any painting project. They're just wonderful. Well, I'm going to let that dry, and we'll get back onto our terrain. You know, I just remembered something. Since this is a volcano, I have to shade the outside of these rocks too. I don't know where my brain was at. Oh, another thing. if you're planning to have this sacrificial altar in white, go ahead and paint that in right now. And just do the same as you did with the highlighting of the skulls. I'm going to have my altar be black with the highlights of turquoise, like shown in the GW or the White Dwarf catalog, in the book, I suppose. Black castle with the turquoise and the red peaks and whatever. I'm going to mimic that here instead of going with white, because with white I tend to think, oh, sacrificing, you know, goats and things for religion, but this is the Warhammer universe, so it's going to be dark and foul and sacrificing for the dark gods, so I want a black altar, especially since the sacrifice is going to be in the heart of a volcano. But that's just me. If you want to go white, just go ahead and paint that up now before the next step. Alright, so for this piece we want to try and mimic the slimy algae effect that the water has when it raises and lowers along the edgings of the rock. Now, what's important about this is you have to be consistent for all of your pieces of terrain. So if you're going to go up here with your green, then you have to go that far up on all of your pieces, which can be problematic for, say, this piece, because it's so, you know, there's not that much room. So I'm just going up about, well, just a little bit. You can see on your model how far I went up. Alright. Put that aside. So your Devlan Mud Wash should be dry now. Now get out your Thraka Green. And you do kind of the same thing, except you keep only to the base and the crevices with the green. Now when you lay down the water line, you want a nice blob of wash. And then you just want to let it dry that way. You don't want to brush it on. Just want to just get it on there and leave it dry. Like so. And then, of course, accentuate all of your crevices. And again, if it's a little bit much, just use some water and thin it out. So then you get roughly this look once it's dry. You can see those two side by side. And sometimes you might have to go back in and touch up if it didn't dry strong enough for you. This is actually a very crisp edge. When you see rocks in water, you normally do get a pretty crisp edge, so you don't have to do any feathering or blending or anything like that along the base. When you get up into the mountainous area here, you can, since we do have a lot of detail, you can go ahead and drop some algae and moss and whatever's up there for extra effect. And just remember to get all sides, of course. Sorry, my thumb got in the way there. Wasn't even aware of it. I do try to prevent that from happening. And sometimes it takes more than one coat to do this. Thraka green is a little bit thinner than the Devlan mud. But you get the idea. Now for these skulls, you can either go ahead and put moss into the crevices, or optionally, which I'm thinking of doing, is in these crevices you can help extend the glow of the eyes once we get there, of course. So if you're going to do the moss, this would be the step to do it. Again, just grab some water and blend it a little bit. You can also go ahead and add some into this one eye. This one with the, you can see right through. You get the idea. For the next step, I'm using the Gretchen green foundation. You can mix yellow and green just to get an olive tone. Get yourself, one of your crappy brushes. Get it in the paint. Dab, dab, dab. Just as if we were going to be dry brushing. And then we stipple. And it's basically just a series of jab, 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 jab. Get some more paint. Wipe it off. Jab, 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 jab. The stippling is very much like dry brushing. But a stab motion instead of a stroke motion. Some of these pieces you can't hold very well. Make sure you hit every rock. I like to get a nice helping on each rock. That's just me. And there you go. So, just a little bit more work, but your terrain will look absolutely stellar. I know they're just rocks, but it's not a whole lot of work. And it's just awesome how they come out. Now you can take this one tiny step further if you want to, and go back in with your fortress gray, or just any light gray will do, and just edge highlight. A little bit too much paint. I should be doing this with the side of my brush, but I just want to do it really quick here. Gives you a little bit of oomph. Just picking out the edgings. Now you can compare that, the look of that, to that, and back. Just that little bit extra detail. Get your ruler out for next class. The next episode is going to feature bone, painting this bone turtle. And since we're doing that, we might as well do the ruler as well. And the bony parts of the turndiles, bone hydra, and the leech worm, I think that's called. So yes, focus on bone, and hopefully we can get to making these eyes glow. Making them impressive, and getting to the castle. Get a jump on the next episode by painting your volcano and castle ramparts black, or in this case whichever color you're going for the sacrificial slab. You'll probably need a rather fine, tiny brush to get around the skulls. See you next time, scallywags.